Good evening, everyone. I am Phyllis Logan, your host for the Chicago Westside branch, NAACP. And welcome back again. It's been a whole week already. Thank you very much. I want to thank CAN TV for allowing us to be on the show every other quarter when we bring profound information to you that you need to have, you need to know. This evening, we're going to continue a conversation that we started last week. We talked about the census last week. And the information from the census will roll over into my next topic that goes with it, and that's redistricting or reapportioning our elected officials to certain geographical areas that make up the population for them to serve and represent those communities. So with that, I do want to but did some other research on what's going on in Chicago. We're always talking about what's going on in Chicago, but you have to go online. This one I did not print as an overhead, but some information I pulled from the internet today in reference to, I don't know if you could see that, this is on to 2050. This is a preview report that was done by the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, which is CMAP. CMAP is already pre-planning, designing, getting insight, getting input from different communities on what Chicago will look like in 2050. So we're just in 2017, and I always tell people there's always a plan. Problem is we don't know, we're not at the table when the plans are being made. And CMAP has been working with over 7 counties and over 284 municipalities, having people come in and discuss, talk about, what their visions are for the future in which these municipalities as well as Chicago, what they would look like. What do people want? I mean, what are some ideas to bringing this city and the surrounding county, suburbs, bringing them to a vibrant light, 2050, my kids, their kids will be the ones hopefully running the show. So that means we have to retool them or have them think on the same level. Give us a call, 312-738-1060, and chime in, give us your comments or questions. But it says, along with this report, and you can always go online to cmap.illinois.gov, cmap.illinois.gov, and you can find this information on their webpage. But they did this study, doesn't say how long ago they did the study over what period of time this study was done, but they had 3 categories. They wanted to focus on principles of resilience, inclusive growth, as well as prioritize investments. And when you talk about resilience, you're looking at a strong region requiring communities, infrastructure, and systems that can thrive in the face of uncertain future economic, fiscal, and environmental shifts. One environmental shift I can always think of is that climate change and what full impact it will have or did have on this study. When we talk about the future economics of economics, we have to talk about jobs and things of that nature, who's benefiting and how the county, how the city moves forward. What are their streams of revenue when we talk about fiscal responsibility? And in the area of prioritized investments, there were questions and conversations on achieving regional goals in the era of limited resources requires a coordination across multiple sectors to prioritize these investments for the infrastructure, land use, and the economy. And these are thumbnails that you can, when you go online, you can pull this data and read the full report. We have a caller. Caller, your question or comment? Yes, caller.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I am enjoying your show this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you.
This evening, and it's an important subject that you are bringing up in terms of the future.
Mm-hmm.
And those that are familiar, comfortable with the present are equipped to discuss the future as well as design the future
Yes.
because they have the present understood and they have learned to accept this present reality. We as black people, we haven't done that. So the future is really a subject for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Reason being is because we have not figured out, accepted, and approved the present. And
So
there's
when you say we have not approved the present, what specifically are you talking about?
accepting ourselves.
Okay.
Have we reached that point in time where we can say, yes, I know who I am,
Okay.
and I know who other black people are,
Mm-hmm.
and as we know, we do.
Well,
We're not
well,
doing anything because we don't know
Well,
ourselves.
we're going to get on with the conversation because this was just a stepping stone into the conversation for the remainder of this evening. But feel free to call back in once we've gotten into a little bit more of the conversation, okay? I appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then the third bullet point on here, where we talk about inclusive growth, that's long-term regional economic prosperity, requires increased economic opportunity and improved quality of life for all the residents. So there's also information within this report online at cmap.illinois.gov that you can read this full report and look at all of the bullet points, look at where the reports came from, the study groups, what were some of their areas of concern, and how they compiled all of this data up using resources from everywhere. You'll also see out of that 7 counties, you'll be able to see the makeup of that 284 municipalities that had the opportunity to weigh in on this study. There's a summary also online to give you further information, but they state that they connected with over 2,500 residents in 127 workshops, and then they had 5 typical forums, and then there was also another 61,000 people who were interactive at kiosks. And I do recall that CMAP had many kiosks throughout Cook County as well as some of the other collar counties asking people for their feedback on this study. This study, going into 2050, is in relationship to my next topic, because last week we talked about the census. This week we're talking about redistricting. Every 10 years, reminder, every 10 years the United States conducts a census of its people. The census is conducted by the U.S. Census Bureau. I did state that the NAACP National's office has a lawsuit against the U.S. Census Bureau for not getting itself together in a timely basis. They've not established a budget to do all of this work, to pay people, or actually to put the questionnaire together, to print it, to get it distributed, get people trained on the material, and then get boots on the ground to start counting people. Now, if they delay this for too long, it'll be 2020 before we know it. This information should have been out there already for us to start having public forums on how they're designing the questionnaire. That's number one. That's the first step, is to get public opinion on the questionnaire. So the NAACP is stating that not only are they not doing this in a timely fashion, but the other problem with this, too, the reason why the lawsuit is because there's a hiring freeze. They can't hire federal workers because there's a hiring freeze in the federal government. So who's supposed to go out and count the numbers? That's another barrier that is going to, possibly get them so close to 2020 that they will not be able to or have the capacity to count all the people. So we're feeling a little disservice by this, and we welcome you to play a part, get yourself involved with the NAACP. As always, we're located on the west side of Chicago at 5820 West Chicago Avenue. And become a member or just be a person in the audience, because we are open to the public. And let us hear your questions or comments as it relates to all of the topics that we talked about. Matter of fact, this coming Saturday, the first Saturday, November 4th, is the first Saturday of the month. Our meetings are at 5820 West Chicago Avenue. We start at 1 p.m. So you're more than welcome to stop by, greet our executive committee members, our presidents. I'm a first vice president, our other vice presidents, and our committee members. But we have to do our due diligence, as the last caller just stated. Number one, we have to respect us, and respecting us, we also have to know that we have rights. You know, last week I talked about us being a special class. We're a protected class. We're a protected class because of civil rights. And if we're not doing our due diligence to make sure that we're part of the process, then we fail ourselves, but we also fail our next generations to come. So the census talks about collecting data on the size of the family, the number of people in a community, and these the dollars that come behind this go to building schools, building roads, making sure that there's access to health facilities. Those dollars that come from the federal government pay for those services, depending on the income scale of the communities. Well, what's going to happen is during the 2010 census, it was also found that we lost a large population, and we don't know where the population went. If it went to other states gained from that population. So the United States House of Representatives has a total of 435 House members, U.S. congressmen or women, U.S. congressmen or women, 435 seats. Those 435 seats are distributed throughout the states down to the cities, counties and cities, and then that tells them how many people are in a population to make up one district. Well, Illinois lost one district in 2010 because of our reduction in our population. Arizona and Florida and Georgia, Texas gained 4 congressional seats. Florida gained 2 congressional seats. So that means that a lot of people who relocated out of Illinois possibly went to these states where they had additional population to add and draw maps to say that they need more representatives because they have a larger population. It's really sad when we look at it. Illinois lost 1, but New York and Ohio lost 2 congressional seats. Give me a call, 312-738-1060. Let me hear your thoughts on the population, the census, specifically the census counting. And when we talk about this 2020 census, will they be redrawing maps again? Will we lose more population out of the state of Illinois? Will we lose more district representative seats out of the state of Illinois? There's a process, and it's called drawing a map. So case in point, with the 2010 census, because the population in certain geographical areas was reduced, the map had to be redrawn to give the representative as many numbers in that population as possible. Most U.S. congressmen have about 260, and I'll have to double check, I did not check that. They have about 260,000 individuals in their district. If anyone knows that correct number, please call me. But I do believe that they represent about 260,000 people, and that's a lot, because I do know that aldermen have a population size of about 60,000. So this number may be correct, but please correct me if I'm wrong. And this is really a guesstimate, so correct it anyway if it's not right. And when they have to redraw the map, that means that they have to widen their scope if people within a certain geographical area have been, reduced by way of people relocating. And what it does is it widens the map out, and they draw it in all kinds of crazy ways and zigzags and circles. It's never really in a circle. It's never really in a box. It's never really in a triangle or a rectangle. They draw it in crazy ways to capture that population. And if you, case in point, if you had to redraw just the city of Chicago, one of our congressional seats, let's say Congressman Davis in the 7th Congressional District, his district goes long and then it goes south and then it squirts up north at the, on the west end. It's just a crazy map. But they had to draw the map that way in order to bring that population in fold. And it's the same way with the 2nd District, Congressman Bobby Rush. I mean, his district had to go further east and then further south. And then Congresswoman Kelly, her district went further to the south suburban areas as well. So we redrew the Illinois map for these congressional districts. But what it did was it included, it made it a diverse community. And when you have diversity, that's a good thing. But then if your diversity is by way of a fraction of a population of people of one race, a fraction of a population of people of one, if they're low income and very low income, well, if that population is reduced, then all of those other individuals, depending on where they weigh at on the scale, high income, medium income, then they get to have more of a voice, because now the people that are on the low and very low income has been diminished. So redistricting talks about equality, making sure that everyone gets accounted for, that everyone's needs are met in an equitable way. So we're going to be asking you guys to join us in the next coming months to talk more, come in and have our own little roundtable discussions on how the redistricting and reapportioning our representatives will affect us. So as always, we're going to tell you once again, call our office, 773-261-5890. Let us know that you want to be a part of the conversation. If you have no problem joining, become a member, you can do that. But our next meeting is this coming Saturday, November 4th, at 5820 West Chicago Avenue, and the meeting starts at 1 p.m. We welcome you to come in and be a part of this conversation. This is a serious conversation, because what will happen is some will be representative of their communities and some will not. Some will have a voice, some will not. And then it takes us back to number one, making sure that our numbers are counted for the 2020 census, to make sure that everyone in your household is accounted for, so that the needs can be met by way of whomever's representing you, whomever you choose to elect. We'll be talking about voter registration. We've got several voter registration drives coming up real soon, and we have to talk about ways how your vote does matter. If you're part of the census, you're a registered voter, you're voting, you know who represent you, then you're more apt to walk into that office and let that person who's representing you know that they are or are not representing you the proper way. You'll have a voice. But if you don't exercise the right to vote, and if you're not counted in the census, it's kind of hard for them to even deliver any types of services to you, or for you to even request services that meet your need, when number one, you didn't get counted in the census, and then number two, you didn't exercise the right to vote. Even with redistricting, and we talk about voting rights, this is a long fought effort by, our families in the past, and we have taken it for granted for so long, but it's coming now back to bite us, because we've chosen not to take voting, exercising this right to vote seriously. We've taken not being counted for in the census data seriously. we're diminishing all of our rights when we're not counted. And then to not exercise a right to vote just diminishes all that our concerns and our needs, why they cannot be met. It falls on us. And then we become a closed community with little resources, and then we wonder why we have blighted communities. We wonder why we live in desert communities, meaning there's no grocery stores. Now everybody's popping up with gardens. Gardens are good. I've seen chickens and hens in backyards, and lately, I think I've even seen a couple of goats in the Austin community. So somebody's trying to do it the right way by farming themselves. But that's not what we want. Excuse me. We want to talk about empowering our communities for all of our sakes, which speaks to not only voting, but also with jobs. If you know that there's a project that's coming into your community, you should have the right to go and apply for that job. You should also should be able to request for some type of training, which is the education, to make sure that you're prepped for that job. If you need to go back to school and learn new skills, you want to make sure that there's affordable opportunities for you to do that. But education, jobs, as well as justice. I mean, how can we get justice if we're not standing up for the simplest things, such as being counted for in a census, which only comes every 10 years. So what's the excuse when you don't count yourself or not open the door when people are knocking to say we need the information? Or when you get the pamphlet and you don't answer the 7, maybe 11 questions that say just tell us who's in the house. You know, that's all they want to know is how many people are in the house. If they know how many kids are in the house, we talked about this last week. If they know how many kids are in the house, they're better able to service the community with quality education, with schools. If they know how many kids are in the house, you're able to not only fight for a bus line because the kids have to travel here and there, if the school is further away, if it's not in their immediate location. It also talks about resources when we ask the Board of Education to supply school buses to a certain community because there's no public bus line. It talks about daycare and nursery and a whole lot of reasonable access to resources that a person should have within their community. You should be able to walk to a healthy establishment where you can buy fresh food, not buy food that's been sitting on the shelves for 6 months to a year. All of this is by way of the census. If you're not counting, they don't know you exist. If you don't vote, they don't know you exist. And when you don't vote and the numbers diminish, then they get to redistrict and give you a person who may not want to represent you. So you're not counted, you didn't vote, and now they've thought that they've lost a population of people, and then they stretch and redistrict the map, and you become a lesser person, a lesser factor, because you and your family did not get counted. So we've got to do a better job. 312-738-1060. Give me a call. The NAACP, we are looking to we've done some research. We're going to be very proactive in the redistricting. But as I stated last week, they're suing the U.S. Census for not working in a duly fashion, deliberately putting the government on hold, not hiring people, cutting the budget, for cutting the funding that's needed to make sure that this census happens correctly. And then on top of that, redistricting in our communities, changing the landscape of us being a population of people, but stretching that band out and including more people who may not all think alike, may not all need the same resources, may have, may not even need the government for that matter. If they don't need the government and you do because of social services, then you lose out. And we just have to be able to get our community to understand that the redistricting is a huge factor that does not many times work to our favor if we're not part of the drawing of these maps. If we do lose another congressman out of the state of Illinois, Which area will that be? How will they change the landscape of that map? Will you be part of the tail end of a district and then your vote be less counted? These are things that we really want you, our audience, to understand. So we want to teach you. Once again, join us, if you can, this Saturday, 1 p.m. at 5820 West Chicago Avenue. And come on out and meet some of the, we're foot soldiers. Come out and meet some of us, see who's actually doing the work, and then maybe you'll have an opportunity to hear from those who are working to give you some insight on how you can be more involved, engaged in what we're doing as well. We need your help, and there is power in numbers, as the NAACP has always said. But they're going to be redrawing these districts real soon, and we want to educate you, the consumer, you, our community, our neighbors. We want to educate you. So we're going to look forward to seeing you hopefully this Saturday. Just let them know you heard it from KNTV this past Monday, and we're inviting you out. But the purpose of all of this is to empower our communities, to bring resources, jobs, quality education for our kids, as well as social justice to our communities. We've got to do a better job, and we invite you to be a part of that. And, go online to that CMAP and look up that research, that study, that report that they just did on to 2050. So, in 50 years, in the year 2050, I don't know where I'll be. But we do have little ones who are growing up, and we know that they will want to play a big role in society. Will this be the type of society that they can be a part of? If we leave them out of the conversation and do not educate them, then they lose out, because they'll never know that change is coming, that change is in front of them, and they'll be lost if we don't keep them up to date with how society is advancing. As someone once said, we could have tickets to the moon real soon. A ticket, I wouldn't mind a rocket ship ticket, Vernon. I mean, a ticket to go to Mars. I wouldn't mind, or going to the moon for that matter, okay? So, but those are some of the challenges that we're going to be facing if we don't educate ourselves on the future of this earth that we live on. Come out and learn about weatherization. Come out and learn how climate change affects us. I mean, be a part of our larger, broader conversation of committees that we have.
Say hello to Captain Castile.
Captain Castile?
Yes, say hello to Captain Castile.
Hello, Captain Castile. There you go. So come out and be a part of us. And once again, our address, 5820 West Chicago Avenue. Our meeting is the first Saturday of every month. This Saturday, November 4th. We start at 1 p.m. We are at an accessible location. And you're always welcome to come in and have a seat, be our guest for the day, or become a member. We welcome everyone. And our youth are a bigger part as well. So we need to get our youth more involved in these conversations so that they can be prepared for the future, and get them to thinking about, how processes work, how government works. We're trying to do more in civic engagement right now. We need to educate our youth on where we came from, where they're going, to make sure that they're part of it. So I am Phyllis Logan, your host, and we welcome you every Monday, 7:30 p.m. Feel free to call in with your questions or comments at our next show, but feel free also to call our office for any continued conversation you want to be a part of. Thank you, and have a good evening.